Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Fast, Healthy, and Ono Cooking, sponsored by AARP Hawaii, Windward Community College, Uala Leaf Cafe, and Kaunoa Senior Services. My name is Jackie Boland. I'm the Community Outreach Director for AARP Hawaii, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. If you're joining us for the first time, I just want to mention that if you have questions for Chef Dan, you can submit them at any time through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions for me or Alice Swift, who's helping with our providing technical assistance, you can put those into the chat. But if they're for the chef, please do put them in through the Q&A. Also, I want to just let you know that I'll be trying to give Dan about 15 minutes to get into the demonstration before we ask any questions so that he can get through a portion of the demonstration before we distract him. Oops, sorry. Finally, those of you who've been joining us for quite a while, you know that AARP is a nonprofit membership organization with a social mission. We have about 140,000 members here in the state of Hawaii, and what we do for everyone. So whether you're 18 or 80, you can be participating in this show. Today, I just want to call attention to an issue that we'll be talking about throughout this month, which is hunger. A lot of people experienced hunger and food insecurity after the pandemic began. And so this month, which is traditionally the month in Hawaii where we help collect food for the food bank, we decided that we would focus on food security. And those of you who are AARP members, you'll be getting an AARP bulletin that has a list of all the ways you can donate through our local food banks. And also in the chat, if you scroll up through the chat, you'll see a link to an article in Honolulu Magazine that's about to come out about a program that Chef Dan is spearheading called Meals with a Mission that helps to feed hungry college students. So we're talking about food, and so we thought we would just take a moment to talk about those folks who don't have the same kind of food access that we all have. So I hope you'll indulge us in that. So without further ado, I'd like to just invite Chef Dan to go ahead and come on board. And I'm going to stop my screen share. I hope you all have a wonderful time during tonight's demonstration.
Awesome. Can you see me and hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And thank you, Jackie, for mentioning the Meals with a Mission. I appreciate that. So tonight we're focusing on kind of an older technique or cooking method, classical French style, but you hardly see it used that often today. I just saw an article, Chef Mabro had done a cooking demonstration for culinary students, and he actually used in Papillote, and he was doing it with squab. Tonight we're using fish. I actually have some shrimp as well. But it's super simple, and as we go through the process, you'll see that there's a lot of versatility that you can implement into this particular technique. It can be prepared in advance, put in the fridge, and then thrown into the oven whenever you're ready for it. It works fairly well for smaller portions, or you can do larger portions for more than one meal per person. Traditionally, it's an individual package, but to me, it's kind of neat and exciting. And then I wanted to just point out that the cooking method that this particular technique involves is a moist heat method. Even though we're baking it in the oven, what we're doing is creating sort of a pouch with parchment paper that seals in the moisture, creates steam, and even though it's surrounded by dry heat, it basically is a moist heat method because of the steaming process. So that's an interesting part and sort of a reinforcement of what we've learned in previous classes. And then the other thing I wanted to mention and show you guys is a mandolin. Maybe some of you have used these before in the kitchen. I want to kind of go through the process of that. Super handy, very efficient and time saving, great consistent cuts. It's just a couple safety features that we'll want to talk about. So just keep in mind, we're doing a moist heat method, even though we're baking. And I want to introduce you guys to a new toy for the kitchen. So that being said, I want to start first with the paper. Now we can We're using parchment paper. This can be purchased now in most supermarkets, or Chef Zone sells it. May not be the full 18 by 26 sheet. It's probably a half sheet. So the piece would be a little bit smaller, and what we're cutting would be a little bit smaller, but the same exact process. So what I do is just fold it in half lengthwise. And we're basically making like a little heart shape. So you can take a marker or a pen if you wish and sort of draw. That's not a great heart, but close. Sort of a heart shape, or it will be when we open it up. And then you can use scissors to cut it. I tend to just use a knife. So I'm just going to cut kind of on the inside of that line, so I don't have marker ink on my food. So just to the inside, I cut that. And then this is just extra paper. And one thing I would mention is don't use wax paper for this. I think they still sell wax paper, and it's used for some things, but I think I've used it maybe twice in my life. And every time I do, I just get smoke in the oven. So it's a wax lined paper. I think it's best to not bake with. What you're looking for is parchment paper. So you'll look for that term, parchment paper. They make it in white, and they also make it in brown. And then this is basically like the shape that you end up with. So it's sort of heart shape. You can make, oh, Valentine's Day is over. So I was going to say you can make an extra one for your sweetheart. I've got a couple here. I'll try to make two depending on time, but very, very simple. And then this is just the vessel that we'll use for cooking the food that we're going to put in it. And like I said, tonight is vegetables, sliced thin potatoes, and some seafood. So, and then the tray of food that I have here, just a zucchini. The recipe that I sent out actually had these items on it: peppers, carrots, zucchini, red potatoes. I went to get some at the store, and they only had a couple, but they did have these really, really small ones. So I grabbed those in case I need them, but actually I think I have just enough to get me through. A little bit of onion, garlic, and lemon. And this is a really big lemon. I think I put 2 slices to put on top when we get to the end, but because this is so big, I only need 1 piece. So feel free to ask questions, Jackie. I just want to introduce this piece of equipment really quick, the mandolin. It's like the musical instrument, but with an E at the end. And what it does is it has like a blade, a razor blade that's set at an angle. And then it has an adjustable level on the side that dictates the thickness of the cuts that you actually make. So you can see maybe as I turn this, it opens up and closes, opens and closes. Not only can you adjust the thickness of the item that you're cutting, there's also on this side multiple blades. So currently there's nothing here where these marks are. And this was what would give me a nice thin sliced potato, for example. So if I'm slicing potatoes like I need for this evening, I could use a knife, but I can also use a mandolin. Being super careful, watching my knuckles and my hands. And then it gives me nice, even cut shingles. Super convenient. The other tool or adjustment that we have on here is a series of blades. So it might be a little hard to see. Try to put it up there for you. But that one is called like the broader cut. That's like a bassinet. So that's about 1/2 inch, almost 1/2 inch in width. And then we've got one more click, and it gives us the smaller matchstick or julienne cut. So that's the particular cut we're using tonight. They're right next to each other. So you can have no blades sticking up for the nice slice. You can do the thick bassinet, or you can do the thin julienne. So I'm going to use the julienne for the carrot. So I'll just move this to the side. And what I would recommend if you decide these are something that you want to look at getting, they're not expensive at all. You can find them all over online. They usually have a convenient edge where you can put it on a bowl or something like this that'll hold it for you and put your products right into the bowl. But you can also get the mesh glove, which is called a cutting glove often, and it'll protect your hand from getting cut. Because if you've ever used these, anyone who's ever used it regularly has always caught their knuckle or their finger. So it's just like a knife. You have to be super careful. This is a razor and you just want to be super cautious. So I'm going to adjust the thickness to a little bit thinner than what I had here. I don't want it open all the way. And then I'm just going to go kind of quickly.
So Dan, it seems like a regular stand-up cheese grater does the same thing, but
Box
also,
graters, yeah, a box grater, yeah. A box grater, Jackie, will have this on the side, but it's designed for cheese and it's not very sharp. It will not have these blades that allow you to do different thicknesses. So you can see these cuts here, how quick and easy, or let me put it up a little closer to the camera. So you can see how fast that was. To do that by hand would take quite a lot of time.
Sure. Yeah, I have all the spiralizing attachments for my KitchenAid, but some folks are asking, where can you buy that on island, or does it have to be online? And also, is there a particular brand that you prefer?
This particular brand is TNS 3000. This is made in Germany. I'll be honest, most of the ones I purchase, I find like at Savers. Almost every time you go to Savers, you'll see a bunch, but if you do look online, you can find them. I'm not sure where you might find it locally. Maybe Alice can find something before the end of the show, but they are broadly available and they're pretty easy to get. The old style ones were metal. They were about $150. I think you can get these now with the basic set for probably about $25. Not expensive at all. Easy to wash, plastic, and a metal blade, so it works well.
I think it's refreshing that we can buy something for the kitchen at Savers. And somebody else said maybe it's available at Ross and Target as well.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
And then Bill Pruka is saying, don't most of these tools come with a hand guard to protect the fingers? Have you souped up your tool there?
Most of them. Now they have a little guard that you like spear a potato with and use it, but you still need that base to be attached to the spear. So I've never found them to be that convenient. I just go, and you'll notice I didn't go all the way down with the carrot. I always save a little bit at the end. So if I weren't filming, I don't want to cut myself tonight, I probably would go a little bit further, but they do make guards for some of them, yes.
Okay, and you just reminded me I forgot to press record. And if anybody needs live transcription, put it in the chat and I'll turn that on for folks. So that was the question. Somebody did ask for a repeat on the brand name though.
This one doesn't have it on the side, I'm sorry. But Alice will post some brands in the chat so people can look at those. And then I'm just taking this nice, look at this nice mixed vegetable. Super simple and extremely fast. I'm just going to put it all together. I'll put in the potatoes as well. I'm using a little bit of avocado oil. You can use your own favorite oil. Some of the Uwala seasoning. And then I just need to mix that together to season it up a little bit. Then once that's mixed, I have my parchment paper here. I got something showing up on my screen here. I want to put a light bit of oil on the bottom. So you can, I put on the recipe, you can brush it with butter. You can also use a little vegetable spray, which is what I tend to do. Olive oil spray works great. And then the starch goes down first. So I'm just going to shingle some potatoes down there at the bottom. And I do have two, so I'm going to try to bang out both of these. And it doesn't have to be a red potato. I'd like you to think of this as a super versatile type technique that you could honestly use leftover rice and put it at the bottom. And then whatever it is you're putting on top, you're going to get the moisture from that to come down into the rice and soften it up. And it is a moist heat method, so it will steam again. So keep that in mind when you're getting creative, trying to come up with dishes. Any vegetables you want to use, are up to you. Just keep in mind that when we look at the fish or the shrimp or whatever you're putting on top, you want to make sure that it all kind of cooks to perfection at the same time. So these thin ones will cook really quickly. So I'll just put a little.
And I don't want to mess up the whole film thing, but we've had a couple of people asking, can you put that overhead camera on the space that you're working on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Let me move everything over here. I think that was my plan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for reminding. I don't watch the camera much when I'm doing this. I just talk to a webcam. So you can see here, hopefully, does that show up a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
In there, awesome. So you've got that layer of potato underneath. I've got that colorful vegetable. And then here I have some mahi-mahi. I also have some shrimp. You can, again, even use chicken for this. I probably wouldn't use beef or pork because it's a moist heat method, but any kind of seafood or poultry that you think would work well for poaching or steaming would work good for this particular dish. So a little bit of seasoning on this, a little bit on the fish as well. And then just need to layer it on top. So one of these I will do with shrimp. You could even do a combination if you wanted to.
A question is, with the rice, would you use cooked rice or uncooked rice?
Definitely cooked rice. So any leftover rice that you have, I would utilize that for sure. You wouldn't want to do cooked or raw rice because it's not going to cook. There's not enough moisture in there. And then I'm going to just cut this fish a little bit smaller and lay that right on top. And then the last thing that we want to do is add a lemon. And like I said, because this is so big, I only need one slice. So I'm going to cut a slice of lemon for each of these. And then that'll add a little bit of flavor to the fish or the seafood. And I usually will throw in an aromatic herb. So I've got some fresh thyme here. And I leave the stem on and everything, just a little bit right on top of that one. And then on this one, I'm going to put some basil. So we have two different flavors. Okay, now all we have to do is fold it up. And that's really, really simple to do. I'll slide one to the side and then work on this one. So you got to be careful. You don't want to get it too high because what we want to do is make sure that it closes and seals. So as you fold this paper over the top, I always give it a little bit of a press to make sure that it's all in place. And this, it doesn't line up exact. Don't worry about that. It's going to have a little bit of a longer edge on the bottom because you're obviously going up and over the hump of that food product that you've put in there. Make sure that it stays together. And then all we have to do now is sort of fold it and seal it. So the trick to that is just to take starting at the top of the heart, I just fold it over and then run my finger across to seal it. And then I just work my way down. So I do the same thing with the next layer, fold it over, seal it with my finger. Again, I just fold it and seal it, and I just work my way all the way around. As you make this corner, one thing you might notice, depending on how you cut it, is that it might get a little wide. So sometimes if that happens, I tuck it under and just seal it. And then you just work.
Thank you. I just want to remind people that we're not using the raise hand function tonight. So if you have a question for the chef, please do put it into the Q&A. And Dan, Mary's just asking, I think you just said that you could be over full on the parchment. So she's asking about how much food to the size of parchment. Is that even possible for you to estimate?
Yeah, the portion size, you mean?
Yeah, like was that about 5 ounces of fish and about 3 ounces of other stuff?
Yep. So it's usually almost always the same. You know, we do about 4 to 5 ounces of protein, 3 ounces of vegetable. And the starch on this was a little bit less. It was probably actually only about 2 ounces. But you could probably go upwards of 3. So it doesn't matter. You would just need to make a larger pouch. And I'm going to show you a foil one as well. So then the sky's the limit with the foil. You can make it as large as you want. So
And
once
that was actually the question that Connie had is, can you use foil instead of parchment? And I would
Absolutely.
question, what is the difference? What's the value of doing one over the other?
This is traditional in papillote, right? It means in paper. So I don't know what the French term for foil is. Maybe you'd have to change the name and call it in foil. But
Well, it's probably better for the environment to use paper, I'm guessing.
I don't think they had aluminum foil back in the day when this was created as a technique. So what you end up with is almost like a little teardrop shape. And when I get to the end, it's almost like a little tail, especially with fish. I tend to twist it and put it up a little bit. So it ends up looking just like that. And then I'll do the second one and show you guys again. So we're just folding it over, doing the crease, running your finger across the top. Again, don't worry if there's not perfectly lined up here. It's going to get tightened up. And I just go kind of as close to the food product as I can. And I didn't mention on the previous one, but usually for me, when I get to about the 3/4 point, like I'm at right now, like this, I'll tend to like pick it up and just make sure that the food is towards the front. We don't want it squirting out the back. And then we're just, these last couple folds are really easy. We're just running our finger across like this. And then we end up with our nice little pouches. So these would normally be then just individual servings. Let me make sure that you guys can see that. One per person. So when it comes out of the oven, it hits the plate. And generally speaking, it's torn open at the table. So a couple quick techniques though with the fish, and I'm happy to also answer any questions.
Well, I do have a fish question for you from Debbie. She's just wondering, would butterfish work or is it not firm enough?
Really, any fish will work for this particular item because it'll stay enclosed and it's served in the vessel. We don't take this out of the paper. It's served in the paper. So even a very delicate fish like that, or sole or flounder, or any of the other like really lean white fishes would work great for this particular technique. So even salmon, I have some salmon, but we're using it for a class on Saturday. That would be great in here. Even salmon belly, something with a fat fish, a lean fish, super versatile. It works great for either one.
Thank you. And Kathy's asking, her parchment's on a roll and it's not heart-shaped. Does that matter? Or did we see you cut it into a heart?
I cut it into a heart. So what I did was I took let me grab really quick. I took a full rectangular sheet. So if you have a roll, you can pull out a rectangular sheet, depending the width might be 12, 14 inches. So maybe you're rolling it out 20, tearing it, and then it's just folded in half. And that's where you would come. And like I said earlier, if you wanted to use a pen to sort of give you an outline or a guide, you can feel free to do that. And the other one I did with a knife, but I can also show you scissors. And I usually cut, like I said, on the inside. You don't want that marker showing up on your product as you put it at the table.
I think it's super cute that it's a heart because it's sort of like a heart-healthy meal, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Ted is asking, do you have any thoughts on the use of canola oil versus avocado oil?
Sonoma oil?
Canola.
Oh, canola. I tend to use avocado. Canola's fine. I mean, there's so many oils out there today to choose from. Olive and avocado are our primary ones here. We don't use a lot of canola oil. Maybe in some of our blends for salad dressing, but for the most part, we stick with avocado and olive oil. But I don't have a using it, that's for sure.
And then I'm going to let you get back to it, except that Marguerite just wants to know, could you use frozen fish, assuming it's
absolutely.
defrosted?
Yep. Yeah, this was fresh, but you can use frozen. You could use scallops. When I was going through the supermarket yesterday getting the ingredients for this. I saw so many things that would be great. I remember eating it, I think it was Alan Wong's years and years ago. And he had a baked, it was a clam dish, clams and mussels. And it was done in aluminum foil and a rectangle. When it came out to the table, it was huge. It was for more than one person. And the steam expanded and it was sealed tight enough to where it held its shape. And it was, I don't know if you remember Jiffy popcorn. It's kind of what it looked like, this big poofy aluminum pouch. And then when they tore it open table side, all the steam and the herbs and the aromas from it came through. So it was incredible. So yeah, absolutely.
I can picture the oohs and the ahs. Excellent.
Yeah,
and then I just wanted to mention to folks, if you are asking what he seasoned it with, we did send out a recipe. So email me if you didn't get the recipe and we'll figure that out. Thanks.
Yep. And this is just our basic Uwala seasoning. It's got some Hawaiian herbs in it. And I wouldn't normally go with a fillet maybe this large, just because this pouch isn't as big as it could be. I would have maybe gone a little bit wider. What you want to do is keep in mind how long this fish will take to cook as compared to the vegetable or the potato that you put inside. So you want everything to come out at the same time. And because I did my vegetables so small, I want to cut my fish a little bit thinner. So I'm going on a bias for this one and just cutting. I'll cut 4 slices, but I'm only going to use 2 for this particular one. About like that, so that it'll cook a lot faster. And what I can also do is even put some vegetables on top. So if I put a couple of these here, a little vegetable on top, then the juices from those vegetables are going to go down through the fish. Always come back and still like my citrus. I like the aroma when it comes out, and I also like the juice that goes into the seafood. I have here a celery. This looks like Italian parsley. We were fooled when we purchased it at the farm store, but it smells like celery. It's an herb that smells like celery, not necessarily celery root, but it's turned out to be something I really like a lot. And then again, really quick, I'll just fold this one so we get the idea one last time. See if that works. And again, right at the top, fold that down, and then we just start folding our creases. And it doesn't, like I said, matter if it's like airtight. Paper is not going to be like perfectly airtight. It won't bubble up and puff up as much as aluminum foil would, but it still makes a great presentation. And then again, I'm about 3/4 of the way around. Make sure that the fish and everything's to the front. Continue pressing it. And then there you go. So now we've got 3 entrees here. So if you have a family of 3 or 4, it doesn't take any time at all to put together 4 or 5 of these, 6 of these, put them in the fridge, and then you can just throw them in the oven when you're ready for dinner. And the good thing, as I said earlier about this, is it has everything in it. Your starch, your vegetable, it creates its own sauce. You've got your protein, your herbs, it's all there. So I have a couple here. This one I did with oil. So I'll pull it out. I'll just move these over. Those are ready to bake. Those are for Jackie to pick. Here's a foil one. And then here's one that was baked in parchment. Actually, I'll throw a couple of these in so they're done. There's the
So Dan, if you're using frozen fish, do you need to remove the moisture from the fish before you put it into the parchment?
No, not really. You kind of want that. You want the juices to form, and they should pool up a little bit at the bottom. Just be careful that if you're especially opening it like right out of the oven. This paper one came out actually just before we started the show, so it's been out for about 20 minutes. We're not going to see a lot of steam or anything come out of that, but you would want that juice in the in the bottom. So a little bit of extra moisture is not going to hurt anything at all.
Just to
Here are
mention
scissors
that, did you season, so you did a layer of potato and then some vegetables. Did you only season the fish or did you season all of that?
I seasoned all the vegetables with oil when they were in the bowl and tossed it all together.
Okay.
And then separated out the potatoes and spread it around. So you can see here, you know, it's a very delicate technique for cooking. And I'll put this down where we can get a little bit closer maybe, so we can see that. But you've got the colorful vegetables. You've still got the citrus there. The fish is cooked, steamed nicely. You've got the juice. You can see it at the bottom. So that works really well. Like I said earlier, if you were using rice, it would absorb some of that flavor from the vegetables and the fish and the citrus, and it would taste incredible. And then we've got the same exact setup here. I just did it in the oil, and this one just came out, so it should have more steam as we open it. And do be careful. So yeah, you can see as you tear that open.
And folks are asking, did you put that on a pan, the foil and the parchment, or did you just stick it on the oven rack?
Yeah, that's a great question. Always use a pan, because if you snag the oven rack with foil or paper and it tears it, then it's going to drip all that juice into the oven. So not only will you miss the juice, but you'll also make a mess in your oven. So I just used a little pan, or like a cheesecake pan, because this oven's so small it only fits certain pans. But do make sure that you put them on a pan. So I would get a sheet pan and put the 3 or 4 or 6 on it and just slide them all in the oven at one time. And then I think hopefully you can see that it's steaming a little bit.
That looks good.
Yeah. And it's very healthy, right? So because we cut our potatoes so thin, they're perfectly cooked. You can tell they're tender. Again, you've got the juice in the bottom. The citrus juice has come through. I would just pull this off, set it to the side. Same thing with my herb, because we've got the aromas from it already. And then you're ready to dig into your fish. Or your
Yum.
chicken, or your shrimp.
So speaking of shrimp, MJ wants to know, if you were using frozen shrimp, for example, what would the cooking time be? And is the cooking temperature the same, whether it's frozen or fresh shrimp?
Yeah, I would keep the same temp regardless, frozen or fresh. And it depends on the size of the shrimp. These ones that I had here were 21-25s. That means there's 21 to 25 shrimp per pound. So all shrimp are sold that way. So it depends on the size and the number of shrimp it takes to make a pound. So for the shrimp here, it would be the same as the fish. And temperature, as I said, would be the same. But your timing just sort of depends on the size of the shrimp. So for a shrimp like I have here, 8 to 10 minutes would be fine. And you want to make sure you have nice and small cut vegetables for that. You don't want giant chunks of zucchini or carrot or some other vegetable, and then a small shrimp, so that the shrimp's done or overcooked and the vegetables or the potatoes are still raw. So that's probably the most technical or tricky part of this. So if you always err on the side of making sure your vegetables and starches are cut a little bit smaller, you have a lot more leeway if you slightly overcook a vegetable than you do if you overcook a shrimp or your fish. It gets dry really quickly.
I thought shrimp cooked so much faster than that. That's good to know. And then Luena was just asking, did you mention whether chicken breast would work?
Sorry, I had to taste that. Tastes good. It's delicious. I love the lemon in there. Chicken breast would work. So this is just basically like a steaming technique. So you could lay your seasoned chicken breast on top with the vegetables and the potatoes underneath and cook it the same exact way. The thing that I would watch is like the thickness. Some of the chicken breasts that I see today are like the size of turkey breasts. They're just huge. So I would still shoot for, something that's no thicker than about 3/4 of an inch. So you can get that by cutting it, your chicken breast. on a bias, or you can simply pound it out with a mallet. Usually I'll lay wax paper, or excuse me, plastic wrap down, plastic wrap over the top, and then I can pound it with a mallet or the back of a small pot or whatever you need to expand it out. But you don't want it to be too thick.
So would a 1/4 inch be accurate or 1/2 inch?
A 1/4 would be too small. I would go 3/4 at the maximum. So 1/2 to 3/4 inch would be great.
Okay. And then was it 350 that you were cooking
On
that
this
at?
recipe, I have it at 400.
Okay. And
This
so
oven's
Patricia's
a-
asking, you could do this in an air fryer, right? But you would want to turn it down from 400?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fan in it. So theoretically, this is an air fryer. And I had it at 400 and it didn't burn the paper. You can see there's enough moisture there. So I would try it, if you want to lower it a little bit, maybe 385, but you should be fine even in an air fryer at 400.
And for the chicken, is it the same temperature and the same cooking time?
Same temperature, same cooking time, if the thickness is 3/4 or less.
Got it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, everybody's asking the temperature, which you just said. For the starch, Andrea is wondering, could you use ulu or purple
Oh
Swiss
yeah, absolutely.
cut thin?
Yeah, I just saw there's a great recipe contest for ulu. I think the recipes are due on the 14th. You can look online. I don't know the website, but yeah, ulu in this would be incredible. It could even be, depending on the stage that it's at, right, of ripeness, it could be incorporated with the vegetables. It could become the starch if it was firmer and more starch-like, had a higher starch content, but it would be great. Absolutely, yeah.
And ulu is breadfruit, which everybody's
Yep.
talking about as the future of sustainability in Hawaii. So we may have to do a whole session on breadfruit.
Yeah, we should actually. That would be great. And they do make it's available. Again, I apologize, I don't have the website memorized, but maybe Alice will find it and put it in chat. But you can buy ulu flour, so that's what I'm interested in experimenting with. So it's a cooked dehydrated ulu. But yeah, it is what was they were saying, the Rev Ulu Ocean. So they're like really promoting ulu, and I know Jackie, you're passionate about that as well.
Well, I'm investigating it, so stay tuned, everybody. Wanda's asking, could you freeze these packets and then just put them right into the oven? And if so, would you need to defrost it first? Or if you put it into the oven directly, what's the baking time?
Yeah, you could freeze them, absolutely. If you were to do that, you would definitely want to thaw them before you bake them, and the baking time would be the same. So a quality parchment paper will hold up no problem to freezing. What I would probably say to be safe is just to double line it. As a matter of fact, this one had 2 papers because the first one I cut was a little too small when I went to fold it. So I just put it on another one. So it was double lined, and that would work well. But you don't want to go from the freezer into the oven because the outside will cook and get overcooked before the center gets thoroughly cooked. Put it in the fridge overnight and on the tray that you're going to bake it in, and then the next day just throw it in the oven. That would work great. Good idea.
And the parchment, would it get soggy? Would you want to be using aluminum for that?
It doesn't really, the parchment today doesn't really get soggy. It should be fine, but like I said, I would double it up. Aluminum foil, you'd be a little bit safer for sure. And keep in mind, I mean, it doesn't take long at all to make this. So what you might even do is just get a Tupperware or a pan and build the inside on a pan and freeze it. And then you could take it out, wrap those up individually, not do it in the paper. And then when you want to make it, you're pulling those from the freezer, putting them in the fridge to thaw, and then doing the paper fresh.
Got it. And then let's see. So again, with the air fryer, Karen was saying, if it's 400 degrees, how much time to cook?
I would say, well, for what we were doing here at 400, probably no less than 8 minutes. Keep in mind that if you look at what we have here, with the exception of the potato, Well, actually, I'm from Idaho. We eat potatoes raw too, or we did growing up a lot. Everything in this dish could be served raw. So 8 minutes at a minimum to get some cooking on it. You don't want to overcook the fish or the shrimp. But at the same time, I wouldn't go over maybe like 12 to 14 minutes maximum, but it depends on you. A lot of people like their fish cooked all the way through. Some people like it medium rare, like the tuna that we did. That was last week, I believe. Raw or very close to raw or rare, sashimi style. So it's sort of up to you. You just want to make sure your potato gets cooked. And because we had this really, really thin one, it got completely cooked this was in for about 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
I was going to say 8 minutes is my sweet spot in the air fryer, but I don't know about that potato. So I'm going to have to experiment with that. But we did do a taste test and people love the air fryer fish.
Yeah. If it's really thin like this, you'll have no problem. It'll cook really quickly.
Okay. And then Jenna was wondering, you could cook this on a grill, couldn't you?
No.
No.
Just this you could with foil, absolutely. And I've seen that done. Actually, I've done that myself with other things. Double line your foil and make sure it's sealed really good. And usually I'll put it on a cooler part of the grill. Because remember, a grill is pure dry heat and it is usually at 500 degrees or higher. So the paper would catch on fire. No question about that. But foil would work great. As a matter of fact, when I wrote this recipe, I was flashing back when I was a kid. My dad used to take the fish that we would catch. He'd season it, wrap it in foil, and actually put it in the dishwasher. And he'd run it with the dishes. And then when it came out, it was all steamed in the foil, which is kind of weird. That was a strange memory that surfaced when I had totally that, but people
I'm thinking about soap getting into the fish, but
it was all sealed though, so you don't have to worry about it. And you see it where people will have techniques where they use their car engines on road trips. They'll take and in foil, put it near their engine block, and then on a road trip, you just need some source of heat that's consistent for the period of time necessary to cook it. So I guess people will get creative.
A lot of faith in your foil job too, I think.
Yeah.
Carla's asking, if you use foil, would you actually plate serve it with the foil still on?
Yeah, that's the beauty of this, or one of the cool things I think is to open it up at the table. So this one, I could have gone bigger. I used a household roll of aluminum foil. The ones that we use are a little bit larger. So I would get, traditionally, I would do at least 4 folds on the outside as you're folding it in and sealing it really tightly. 4 on each side. And then you guarantee that you get this really nice puffy bubble of foil. If there's any leaks, then the steam's going to escape. It's not going to puff up as nice. And then you can't tear it open table side. So you don't want to take it out. You want to let the guest or your family or friends tear it open in the dining room or wherever and just see that cloud of aromatics in the fish or the chicken or whatever.
Super exciting. And Erica is just making a comment. She says, thank you for teaching the technique. She can see sweet apples, peaches, pears, pumpkin, and sweet potatoes cooking in those pouches, which sounds great to me too.
Absolutely. You could do a dessert in this. It would be great. You could take a slice of cake left over, pound cake. I would go with a thicker or a denser style cake. You could brush the bottom with butter, a little bit of cake, those sliced apples or whatever, a little bit of cinnamon sugar or something, and pat of butter or butter substitute and fold it up. Whatever your fresh fruit in season would work great. Mangoes, pineapples, you name it. So.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. Luana was just asking, if you pound that chicken flat and thin, if you're doing the chicken, could it be rolled around the filling, tied, and then wrapped? Or is that a different cooking technique?
That is not a different cooking technique. It's just a variation on this method. And I say go for it. I think, that's what we focus. That's probably why we focus on techniques, or at least I do. And thank you for your patience, because I know a lot of people that just want a recipe to follow. But I like to show techniques and traditional things that you can then, what if I do this? What if I do that? That sounds great. You may not even need to tie it with a string. What I would probably recommend doing is getting a really nice green onion. Get a bunch of green onions at the store and blanch them, just put them in boiling water for a second, and you get those long strips of green onion, and they'll be malleable like string. And then you can just lay like 4 of them down, put that bundle on top, and then you can tie it with green onion. So then you don't have to worry about like taking the string out at the end. But that's exactly what we like to see, is that sort of, you get the wheels turning in the kitchen, and walking through the frozen food section or looking in the fridge to see what you had that's left over that you could implement into this technique is a really good way to go.
So now you're making me think that maybe this is just a modern version of cooking in tea leaves and banana leaves.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, this was taking place in Europe, 500 years ago, whereas, 500 years ago in Hawaii and South Pacific, there were, the techniques are not that different. It's just the resources that were available that are a little bit different. And these ones here are done, so I'm going to pull them out, or very close to being done. And you can see how it does puff up a little bit. You got a little bit of increase in size there. And the paper browns a little bit, but it doesn't burn. And then as you open it up, you get the fresh, I can smell the thyme, I can smell the lemon, the fish, the vegetables. And of course, like I said, you always have that sauce for that juice. Traditionally, I didn't mention it earlier, but what you would be doing in a restaurant, French restaurant, is a butter. So a compound butter on top. So if you're not worried about your cholesterol, we focus on healthy, of course, but a little pat of compound butter, which is just an herb butter, or even straight butter on top, melting down to create that sauce would be great also. So just get creative. Try whatever works for you and whatever sounds good.
Thank you so much, Dan. Folks, we have 3 more questions, but we're out of time. So those 3 of you who have the questions, please stay on. We'll answer them. For everyone else, I want to mention, somebody had asked, can you share an email with all of Alice's helpful tips from the chat? I don't currently have staff capacity to do that, but what I will do is I'll see if when I provide the recording link, I'll see if I can provide the transcript from the chat. And then you can write it down from that. And then also, I just want to make a plug. If anybody is interested in volunteering, please do send me an email. We can always use additional volunteers. Bev Parker certainly gets her work out as a volunteer doing just about everything. Thanks, Bev. So Jay Boland at AARP.org. But thanks, everybody. And again, if you have a question, stay on. We can answer them over the next few minutes. But if you've got to go put your paper packets in the oven, we completely understand.
No, I got all the time in the world.
Okay, so Marilyn just wants to know what kind of toaster oven you have because she likes it.
This is a Kenmore, really small. It's a convection, so it does have a fan, adjustable time and temp. This one works really, really well. So these are super inexpensive, and I don't need to tell you where I got them. Everyone thinks you already savers like $10 or something.
Okay, and then Andrea is asking for vegetarian protein that would work well with this. What would you recommend?
Any of them would work. I've done this many times with tofu, and the tofu. What I would recommend, though, if you want to use the firm tofu, is drying it traditionally, right? As you cut it and just soak the moisture out of it, season it, and then I'll bake it first by itself to get some texture and some caramelization on it. Cool it and then build it inside, so you get that extra flavor as opposed to just the straight flavor of the tofu. You could use any protein substitute. You could use quinoa in the bottom, and then vegetables or legumes, any number of things. Anything that you use for a regular vegetarian dish would be great. You could even spoon a little curry sauce on top. You can, just get the wheels turning in your mind of the things that that you can do with this technique. It's pretty limitless.
Well, you've really turned me on to tofu. I have to say, I like it so much better now. So that's our questions. For those of you who are joining us next week, we'll be making Tuscan meatballs and bruschetta and kind of doing a little bit of a taste of Tuscany. So please do join us. If you're someone who signed up using that one-stop link I sent last time and you didn't get notified, please reach out to me via email. I tried to double check the list to make sure everybody was on there, but if you didn't get it, please do let me know and we'll troubleshoot that. And Alice just put the cooking calendar link into the chat, so please be sure to copy that if you're not signed up for the next cooking program. Thanks so much, Chef Dan and Alice and Bev, for all your help, and thanks everybody out there for joining us.
Aloha.